I think one of the biggest mistakes we make in midlife is believing that if we can just figure out the plan, we'll feel better. And I don't think that's true. At least it hasn't been true for me. This past year has not been about finding some perfect answer. It has been about asking myself better questions. And that sounds simple, but it's not. Because better questions have a way of exposing things. They expose what no longer fits and where you've been settling. And it exposes where you've been dragging something out or where you already know the truth, but you haven't wanted to say it out loud yet. That's what this past year has felt like for me. Not a reset, not a fresh start with a neat little bow on it. More like life sitting me down and saying, okay, what are we really doing here? And I think a lot of women are in that place right now, not because they're falling apart, not because they've failed, because the old answers, they just don't work anymore. If you're new here, I'm Rhonda Taylor. At 52, I sold everything I owned and started building a life of solo travel and working from anywhere. Now, after an unexpected rebuilding season, I'm documenting what midlife reinvention really looks like in real time. If you're figuring out what comes next in this stage of life, you're in the right place. The question that kept coming back for me was this: what do I actually want now? Not what used to make sense, not what looked good on paper, not what I thought I should want by this age. Now, what do I want now? And I think that question is a lot harder than people admit because a lot of us get really good at managing life. We handle things, we adapt, we make things work, we keep going. And after enough years of doing that, it gets easy to stop asking yourself what you want. You start asking smaller questions. What can I live with? What can I manage? What can I make work? What can I get through? And that is not the same thing. There is a big difference between a life that works and a life that fits. And I think a lot of women know exactly what I mean by that. Another question I had to ask myself was, what am I done pretending still fits? Because that's what we do, isn't it? Something stops fitting, but instead of admitting that, we just keep adjusting ourselves around it. We call it being flexible. We call it being practical. We call it being grateful. Meanwhile, something in us already knows this way of living doesn't fit me anymore. This version of work doesn't fit. This pace doesn't fit. This role I've been carrying doesn't fit. This old identity I've been dragging around doesn't fit. And when you keep ignoring that, you start feeling it everywhere. You feel it in your energy, in your body. You feel it in your irritation. You feel it in how tired you are. You feel it in how little room you have left for things that used to feel manageable. That's not random. That's information. Now, this one got a little too close to home. Was I really waiting for clarity or was I stalling? Because those are not the same thing. And I think we mix them up all the time. We tell ourselves we need more time, more information, a better moment, a little more certainty. And sometimes that's true. But sometimes you already know and you know something needs to change. You know something has run its course. You know a decision is sitting there waiting for you. You just don't want to deal with what comes after that. I've had to look at that myself, not to beat myself up, just to be real about it, because there is a difference between moving carefully and hiding in plain sight. And a lot of women have gotten very good at hiding in plain sight. This question matters to me more than it ever used to. What kind of life can actually hold me now? Not impress me, not challenge me just for the sake of it, not make a good story. Hold me, support me, meet me where I am, make sense for the life I'm actually living now. That question changed a lot for me because I already know a life can look bold and still not support you. It can look free and still leave you carrying too much by yourself. It can look exciting and still not have enough underneath it. I'm not interested in a life that only looks good from the outside. I want a life with some backbone under it, a life that gives me room, yes, but also support, a life that lets me breathe, but can also hold my weight. That is a very different standard. And I think more women need permission to want that. This has been another big one. Am I trying to get back to who I was, or am I trying to build what's next? Because after life knocks the wind out of you a little bit, it is really tempting to think the goal is to get back to the version of you that felt stronger, back to when things made more sense, back to the life that felt easier to explain, back to the season when you felt more certain. I understand that impulse, but I don't think that's actually the work. At least it isn't for me. I'm not here to rebuild an old version of my life. I'm here to build the next one. And that means I have to take myself seriously as I am now, what I know now, what I need now, what I'm no longer willing to tolerate now, what I still want now. That's not going backward. That's building from where I actually am. This may be the sharpest question of all. What do I need to stop lying to myself about? And yes, that's blunt, but sometimes blunt is useful because we soften things for ourselves all the time. We call it being realistic. We call it keeping our options open. We call it staying patient. Meanwhile, we know. We know what feels off. We know what we're tired of. We know where we've been settling. We know where we've been shrinking. We know when we're pretending something is okay because dealing with it feels harder. At some point, that starts costing too much. This past year has pushed me to look at that more directly, not in some cruel way, just calling it what it is. This doesn't work for me anymore. I want more room than this. I want to do this differently. I'm not done. I'm not here to keep abandoning myself just because it's familiar. That kind of truth changes things. Maybe the deepest question underneath all of this has been, what would it look like to trust myself now? Not the younger version of me, not the version of me that had more certainty, not the version of me that thought she had to prove she was brave. Me now. What would it look like to trust myself now with everything I've lived and everything I know. Because trust feels different now. It feels quieter, less about proving something, more grounded. It looks more like paying attention, listening sooner, believing myself sooner, honoring what feels true even before I have all the proof lined up. I think that's one of the biggest changes in me. I'm less interested in proving I can leap, more interested in building something real. And that may not be flashy, but it matters more. And maybe that's the real shift. Maybe midlife is not about having better answers right away. Maybe it starts with having the nerve to ask better questions, questions that belong to the life you're living now, not the life you lived 10 years ago, not the life other people expected you to want, not the life that made sense on paper. Now, what is true now? What fits now? What am I tired of pretending is okay? What do I want? What am I no longer willing to abandon in myself? Those questions can change a life. Because I think a lot of women are not stuck because they're incapable. They're stuck because they keep trying to solve the wrong problem. They're trying to fix their life without first telling themselves the truth about it. And that only works for so long. Hey, I'm still in this too. I am still rebuilding, still figuring things out, still asking myself better questions than I was asking a year ago. And honestly, I think that is progress, real progress. If this resonates with you, I would love to know. What is one question life has been asking you lately? Drop it in the comments. I read every one of them. And if you're in a season where you're trying to figure out what your next chapter could look like, I created something that might help. I'll leave the Midlife Clarity Finder below. And if you want to follow along as I keep building this next version of my life in real time, please subscribe. Until next time, rebuild boldly and live fully.